6 months after marrying the most dangerous man in Atlanta, Petra Kong thought the worst was behind her. She was wrong. The white rose she once placed on a stranger's grave had saved a life. The car accident had brought her a destiny. The wedding had made her a queen in a world she never knew existed. But now someone wanted her dead. And they were willing to burn down everything and everyone she loved to make it happen. In part 1, you watched Petra crash into Kang Do-han's life and discover that the man she owed millions to had been searching for her for 8 years. You saw them fall in love despite impossible odds, survive Yoon Jae-hae's threats, and build a future together. But in the world of underground empires and blood debts, happily ever after is just the beginning. Because Petra is hiding a secret, one that makes her more valuable and more vulnerable than she ever imagined. Do-han's enemies are circling, his past is catching up, and the organization he thought he'd left behind has other plans. And when Petra receives a photo of herself with a target drawn over her stomach and a message that reads "One life for another," the Covenant demands balance. She realizes that the real war is just beginning. This is part 2, and things are about to get deadly. Welcome back to the channel. If you haven't watched part 1 of Petra and Do-han's story, stop right now and go watch it, because part 2 picks up right where we left off, and trust me, you do not want to miss a single moment of what's about to go down. For everyone who's been waiting for this continuation, thank you for your patience. This is going to be intense, emotional, and absolutely worth the wait. Now, before we dive in, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications because this story has everything: betrayal, kidnapping, a grandmother who shoots first and asks questions later, and a love so powerful it threatens to tear apart an entire criminal empire. Let's get into it. The first sign that something was wrong came on a Tuesday morning, 6 months after the wedding. Petra Kong, she still wasn't completely used to her new surname, woke to an empty bed. The sheets on Do-han's side were cold, which meant he'd been gone for hours. This wasn't unusual. Her husband often woke before dawn to handle international business calls with their Seoul and Hong Kong offices. What was unusual was the absolute silence in the house. The Kang estate was never truly quiet. There was always the soft hum of activity, security teams changing shifts, Mrs. Cho directing the housekeeping staff, the groundskeepers tending to the immaculate gardens. But this morning, the silence felt oppressive, like the world was holding its breath. Petra pulled on her silk robe and padded barefoot down the hallway toward Do-han's study. The door was closed, but she could see light beneath it. She raised her hand to knock, then froze when she heard voices from inside. Can't protect her from this forever. That was Hyun's voice, tense in a way she'd never heard before. They know about her now. About what she means to you. I'm aware. Do-han's voice was ice. Which is exactly why she needs to remain ignorant of the situation. Ignorant? Do-han, she's your wife, not a child. She has a right to know. She has a right to be safe. Knowledge is a weapon in our world, Hyun. The less she knows, the less valuable she becomes as a target. That's not fair to her. Nothing about this life has ever been fair. Petra's hand fell to her side. They were talking about her. Keeping secrets from her. After everything they'd been through, after all of Do-han's promises about trust and partnership, he was shutting her out. She pressed her palm against the door, debating whether to confront them, when a hand closed gently around her shoulder. Mrs. Kong. Mrs. Cho's voice was soft but urgent. Perhaps you should come with me. They're keeping things from me. Yes. The older woman's eyes were sad. To protect you. But I think perhaps it's time you knew the whole truth. Come. Mrs. Cho led her to the housekeeper's private quarters in the South Wing, a cozy apartment that Petra had only visited once before. The older woman locked the door behind them and gestured for Petra to sit. What I'm about to tell you, Mrs. Cho said, settling into the chair across from her, Mr. Kong would be furious to know you learned. But you're a smart woman, Petra, and you deserve to understand what you've married into. I know about his past. The criminal organization, his father's death. Do you know about the Covenant? Petra shook her head. Mrs. Cho sighed deeply. The Covenant is an alliance of the most powerful families in the Asian underground network: Korean, Japanese, Chinese, Vietnamese. They control everything from real estate to shipping to political influence across 3 continents. For generations, these families have maintained peace through a complex web of marriages, business partnerships, and blood debts. Blood debts. When one family saves another's heir, a bond is formed. The saved owes the savior a life debt that can be called upon at any time. It's ancient, unbreakable, and more powerful than any contract. Something cold settled in Petra's stomach. The night at the cemetery. When I saved Dohan, you created a blood debt without knowing it. In Dohan's world, that means he owes you not just gratitude, but his absolute loyalty and protection. It's one of the reasons he searched for you for so long. The debt was driving him to madness. But he said he looked for me because he wanted to thank me. Because Petra's voice caught. Because he loved me. Oh, child. Mrs. Cho reached over and took her hands. He does love you. That much is real. But the debt, it complicates things. You see, when Dohan married you, he didn't just marry for love. He married to fulfill the blood debt and to prevent any other family from claiming you. Claiming me? I don't understand. The Yoon family discovered the truth about that night at the cemetery. They learned that an outsider, a Black American woman with no family connections or political value, had saved the Kang heir's life. To them, you were a loose thread. A vulnerability they could exploit. Petra's mind raced. That's why Jae-hai was so angry at the gala. It wasn't just about losing Dohan. It was about power. Control. The covenant operates on rules that are older than any of us. When Dohan married you, he broke an unspoken agreement that heirs marry within the network. He chose love and honor over political advantage. And now, Mrs. Cho's expression grew grave. Now the covenant is fracturing. Some families support Dohan's decision to go legitimate. Others see it as a betrayal that weakens the entire network. There's a faction that wants to remove the problem. Remove. Petra's blood ran cold. They want to kill me. Or worse, they want to use you to control Dohan. To force him to abandon his legitimate business ventures and return to the old ways. The older woman squeezed her hands tightly. That's what he's been protecting you from. The knowledge that you're not just his wife. You're his greatest weakness. Petra stood abruptly, pacing to the window. Outside, the gardens looked peaceful in the morning light, but she could now see what she'd been blind to before. The security cameras hidden in the trees, the guards positioned at strategic points, the reinforced walls disguised as decorative stonework. She wasn't living in a mansion. She was living in a fortress. And she was the treasure they were protecting. How long has he known about the threat? 3 months. Since the incident in Seoul. Petra whirled around. What incident? Mrs. Cho's face went pale. I've said too much. What? Incident. The older woman looked away. There was an attempt on Dohan's life when he was in South Korea for business. A car bomb. He survived, but 2 of his security team didn't. The attackers left a message, send the Black woman back where she belongs, or we'll send her back in pieces. The words hit Petra like a physical blow. Men had died because of her. Because she'd had the audacity to fall in love with someone from a world she didn't understand. Why didn't he tell me? Because he knew you'd blame yourself. Because he knew you'd want to leave to protect him, and he couldn't bear to lose you. Mrs. Cho stood and crossed to her. Petra, listen to me. That man loves you more than anything in this world. Everything he's done, the secrets, the protection, the walls he's built around you, it's all been to keep you safe. But I'm not safe, am I? I'm a target. And I don't even have the information I need to protect myself. Which is why I'm telling you now. Because I hope, that together, you and Dohan are strong enough to survive what's coming. What is coming? Before Mrs. Cho could answer, Petra's phone buzzed in her robe pocket. She pulled it out and saw a text from an unknown number. The message contained a single photograph. It was Petra herself, taken from a distance with a telephoto lens. She was in the estate's garden, tending to her roses, completely unaware she was being watched. But it wasn't the photo that made her blood freeze. It was the red circle drawn around her abdomen and the words written below. One life for another. The covenant demands balance. Petra's hands shook so badly she nearly dropped the phone. Mrs. Cho. The older woman took the phone, looked at the screen, and went white. Oh no. Oh no. Petra, please tell me. I'm pregnant. The words came out in a whisper. 2 months. I was going to tell Dohan tonight. We've been trying, and I wanted to wait until I was sure, and her voice broke. They know. How do they know? Mrs. Cho was already moving, pulling Petra toward the door. We need to get you to Dohan. Now. They made it halfway down the corridor before the lights went out. The emergency generators should have kicked in immediately. They didn't. Petra felt Mrs. Cho's hand grip her arm in the darkness. Stay quiet. Stay close to me. They moved through the blackness, Mrs. Cho navigating with the confidence of someone who'd walked these halls for decades. Petra could hear sounds now, muffled thuds, the crash of breaking glass, voices shouting in Korean. The estate was under attack. This way, Mrs. Cho whispered, pulling her into what felt like a narrow service corridor. There's a safe room in the basement. Mr. King had it built when you first moved in. What about Dohan? What about Hyun? They can take care of themselves. You're the priority. They descended a steep staircase, the darkness absolute. Petra's heart hammered against her ribs, her mind racing with terrible possibilities. Who had breached the estate's security? How had they gotten past the guards, the cameras, the sophisticated alarm systems? Unless someone had let them in. The thought was barely formed when lights blazed to life, blinding after the darkness. Petra blinked, her vision clearing to reveal a scene from her nightmares. They were in a large basement room, concrete walls lined with wine racks and storage shelves. But the room wasn't empty. Yoon Jae-hai stood in the center, flanked by 6 men in tactical gear, all armed with automatic weapons. She wore a white pantsuit that made her look like an avenging angel, her face twisted with triumphant malice. Hello, Mrs. Kang, Jae-hai purred. We've been waiting for you. Mrs. Cho stepped in front of Petra, her small frame radiating defiance. You won't get away with this. Mr. Kang will. Mr. Kang is currently occupied. Jae-hai's smile was razor-sharp. My associates are keeping him quite busy upstairs. By the time he fights his way down here, this will all be over. What do you want? Petra demanded, fighting to keep her voice steady. Justice. Balance. The restoration of the natural order. Jae-hai moved closer, her heels clicking on the concrete floor. You are an aberration, Petra. A common American girl who stumbled into a world that was never meant for her. You seduced Dohan with your good deed and convinced him to abandon everything his family built. I didn't seduce anyone. We fell in love. Love. Jae-hai spat the word like a curse. Love is a weakness. A distraction. Dohan was supposed to marry me, combine our family's power, and rule the covenant together. Instead, he threw it all away for you. So, this is about revenge. This is about correction. The covenant has decided that Dohan's indiscretion can be forgiven. All he has to do is acknowledge that his marriage to you was a mistake, annul it, and take his proper place at my side. Petra laughed. She couldn't help it. The sound echoed strangely in the concrete space. You actually think he'd do that? You don't know him at all. I know he'll do anything to protect what he loves. Jae-hai's hand moved to her waist, and when it came away, she was holding a sleek black pistol, including trade you for his brother's life. The blood drained from Petra's face. What? Did you think you were the only target tonight? Right now, Kang Song-hyun is in a similar situation across town. My associates have him, and they're waiting for my call. If Dohan agrees to my terms, Hyun lives and you go free with a very generous settlement to ensure your silence. If he refuses, she shrugged delicately. The covenant demands balance. One life for another. You're insane. I'm practical. Jae-hai raised the gun, pointing it directly at Petra's chest. And I'm done waiting for Dohan to come to his senses. Everything happened at once. Mrs. Cho lunged forward, shouting something in Korean. One of the armed men moved to intercept her, grabbing her by the shoulders. The older woman fought like a tiger, her elbow connecting with the man's nose with a satisfying crunch. Petra ran. She didn't think, didn't plan, just bolted toward the nearest door. Gunfire erupted behind her, bullets sparking off the concrete walls. She burst through the door into another corridor, this one lined with industrial pipes and electrical panels. The basement was a maze, and she had no idea where she was going. Behind her, she could hear shouting, footsteps, Jae-hai screaming orders. Petra turned a corner, then another, her breath coming in ragged gasps. Her hand instinctively went to her abdomen, to the tiny life growing there that was now in as much danger as she was. I'm sorry, baby. I'm so sorry. She found herself in a large mechanical room, dominated by the estate's boilers and water systems. There was a metal ladder leading up to what looked like an access hatch. Petra grabbed the rungs and climbed, her muscles screaming, her hands slipping on the metal. She was halfway up when hands seized her ankle. Petra kicked down hard, felt her heel connect with flesh. The grip loosened, and she scrambled up the remaining rungs, pushing the hatch open and hauling herself through. She emerged into chaos. The ground floor of the estate was a war zone. Men in black tactical gear were engaged in close combat with Dohan's security team. Furniture was overturned, artwork shattered, the beautiful hardwood floors scarred with bullet holes. And in the center of it all stood Kong Dohan. He moved like a dancer of death, graceful, efficient, utterly lethal. As Petra watched, he disarmed one attacker, used the man's own weapon to take down two more, then smoothly transitioned to hand-to-hand combat with a fourth. His suit was torn, blood stained his white shirt, but his eyes were clear and focused. He was magnificent. And terrifying. Dohan. Petra screamed. His head whipped toward her, and for a split second, his guard dropped. It was all the opening his opponent needed. Petra saw the knife flash in the dim emergency lighting, saw it arc toward Dohan's exposed side, saw him twist to avoid it, but not quite fast enough. The blade sank into his shoulder. No! Petra's scream tore from her throat. Dohan barely seemed to notice. He grabbed the attacker's wrist, twisted sharply enough that the sickening snap of breaking bone echoed through the room, and drove his elbow into the man's temple. The attacker dropped like a stone. Then Dohan was running toward her, pulling the knife from his shoulder with a grimace, blood soaking his shirt. "What the hell are you doing up here?" he demanded, grabbing her arm. "You're supposed to be in the safe room." "Jai-hai," Petra gasped. "She was waiting for us. She has Hyun. She's going to kill him if you don't." "I know." His voice was grim. "She called me, gave me her terms." "And?" Dohan's eyes met hers, and she saw something there that made her chest ache: love, fury, and absolute determination. "I told her to go to hell." Despite everything, Petra felt a rush of warmth. "Dohan, I'm not losing you. I'm not losing Hyun. And I'm sure as hell not letting that psychotic woman win." He pulled her close, pressing a hard kiss to her forehead. "But I need you to trust me. Can you do that? Always." "Good. Then run." He shoved her toward the front door, where 3 of his security team were holding a defensive position. "Get her out of here. Take her to the secondary location. Go. Now." The men surrounded her, forming a human shield as they moved toward the door. Petra looked back over her shoulder, watching Dohan wade back into the fray, and her heart broke and swelled simultaneously. This was the man she'd married. A warrior. A protector. Someone who would burn the world down to keep his family safe. She just hoped it would be enough. The secondary location turned out to be a luxury high-rise apartment in downtown Atlanta, 30 floors up with panoramic views of the city. The security team swept the apartment, declared it clear, and positioned themselves at strategic points, one at the elevator, one on the balcony, one in the hallway. Petra sank onto the leather couch, her entire body shaking with delayed shock. She was safe. For now. But Dohan was still back at the estate, fighting for his life. And Hyun was somewhere out there, held hostage by people who saw him as nothing more than a bargaining chip. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number again. She almost didn't answer, but something made her swipe to accept the call. "Hello, Petra." Jai-hai's voice was smooth, unruffled. "I see you managed to escape. Impressive. Dohan has trained you well. What do you want?" "The same thing I've always wanted. Dohan's cooperation. The restoration of the proper order." A pause. "I'm going to make this very simple for you. I'm sending you an address. Come alone, no security, no weapons. When you arrive, I'll release Songhyun. You stay with me as insurance until Dohan agrees to my terms." "Why would I do that?" "Because if you don't, I'll kill Hyun. Slowly. Painfully. And I'll send pieces of him to Dohan until he breaks. Your choice, Petra. Save yourself or save your brother-in-law. He'll never agree to your terms. Even if you have both of us. Won't he?" Jai-hai laughed. "You underestimate what a man will do when he's watching the people he loves suffer. Dohan is strong, but everyone has a breaking point. I'm going to find his." The line went dead. Petra stared at her phone, her mind racing. She could tell the security team. They would contact Do-han and he would, what? Storm whatever location Jae-hai had Hyun held in? Risk his brother's life in a confrontation? Or she could go. Trade herself for Hyun. Buy Do-han time to figure out a solution. It wasn't even a choice. Petra stood and walked to the balcony where one of the guards was stationed. I need some air. Just for a minute. The man hesitated, then nodded. Stay where I can see you. She stepped onto the balcony, the night wind whipping her hair. 30 floors below, the city glittered like a field of stars. Atlanta. Her home. The city where she'd struggled and survived and somehow found a love she never expected. A love she wasn't going to lose without a fight. Her phone buzzed again. This time it was a text with an address in an industrial area near the airport. Petra memorized it, then deleted the message. The guard's attention was on the street below, scanning for threats. He didn't see her slip back inside, didn't notice when she grabbed her jacket from the hook by the door. He definitely didn't see her step into the private elevator and press the button for the parking garage. By the time anyone realized she was gone, she was already halfway across the city in an Uber, heading toward what might be her death. The warehouse was exactly what Petra expected, a massive concrete structure, graffitied and decaying, surrounded by empty lots and abandoned vehicles. The kind of place where bad things happened and nobody asked questions. She paid the Uber driver and stood at the entrance, gathering her courage. I'm doing this for Hyun. For Do-han. For our family. Her hand moved to her stomach, to the small life that was depending on her to survive this. For you, baby. Everything for you. She pushed open the rusted metal door. The interior was cavernous, old manufacturing equipment covered in dust, pools of stagnant water reflecting the weak overhead lights. And in the center, tied to a chair with blood dripping down his face, was Kang Song-hyun. Petra. His voice was thick, slurred. One eye was swollen shut, his lips split. No, you shouldn't be here. Touching, isn't it? Jae-hai emerged from behind a stack of crates, flanked by 4 armed men. She looked pristine, not a hair out of place, as if she was attending a business meeting rather than orchestrating a kidnapping. The noble wife, sacrificing herself for family. Jae-hai circled Petra slowly. You know, I almost admire you. Most women in your position would have run as far and fast as they could. But you came, like a lamb to slaughter. I came because you have something that belongs to my family. Let Hyun go, and I'll stay. That was the deal. Was it? I don't remember agreeing to anything. Jae-hai's hand shot out, gripping Petra's chin, forcing her to meet her eyes. You're very brave. Or very stupid. I haven't decided which. Let him go. For a long moment, Jae-hai stared at her. Then, surprisingly, she smiled. Fine. I'm a woman of my word. She gestured to one of her men, who moved to cut Hyun's bonds. Petra, don't do this, Hyun gasped. Do-han will. Do-han will understand. Petra kept her eyes on Jae-hai. Go. Tell him I love him. And I'm sorry. Hyun stumbled to his feet, supported by the guard who'd freed him. He looked at Petra with an expression that broke her heart, guilt, anguish, helpless fury. I'm coming back for you, he promised. We both are. I know. They forced him out the door. Petra heard a vehicle start, drive away. Then there was only silence. Well, Jae-hai said brightly. Now that that's settled, let's talk about your future. Or rather, your lack of one. You said you'd hold me as insurance. Until Do-han agreed. I lied. Jae-hai pulled the gun from her waistband. Do-han will never agree to my terms while you're alive. You're his weakness, Petra. His vulnerability. The thing that makes him soft and sentimental and weak. So I'm going to remove that weakness. Petra's heart hammered, but she kept her voice steady. If you kill me, Do-han will hunt you to the ends of the earth. You'll never know peace, never know safety. He'll destroy you and everything you love. Perhaps. But the Covenant will protect me. They sanctioned this, you see. The old families, the ones who remember the true ways, they agreed that you had to be eliminated. Do-han will rage, yes. But eventually, he'll understand that this was necessary. That he can finally return to his proper place, marry properly, and restore order. You're delusional. And you're about to be dead. Jae-hai raised the gun. Petra closed her eyes, her hand protectively covering her stomach. She thought of Do-han's smile, of the way he held her in the morning, of all the futures they'd planned together that would never happen now. I'm sorry, my love. I'm so sorry. The gunshot was deafening in the enclosed space. Petra waited for the pain, for the darkness. It didn't come. She opened her eyes. Jai-hai was staring down at the red bloom spreading across her white suit jacket, her expression more surprised than pained. The gun slipped from her fingers and clattered on the concrete. Behind her stood a figure Petra had never seen before, a small, elderly Korean woman in traditional hanbok, holding a smoking pistol with the steady grip of someone well accustomed to violence. Grandmother, Jai-hai whispered, then collapsed. The elderly woman stepped over Jai-hai's body as if it were nothing more than a fallen branch. Her eyes, sharp as obsidian, fixed on Petra. You are Petra Kong, she said. It wasn't a question. Yes. Who are you? I am Kong Min-hee, Do-han's grandmother. And you, child, have caused quite the disruption in my family. Petra's mind reeled. Do-han had never mentioned his grandmother. She'd assumed both his grandparents were deceased. I didn't mean. Peace. The old woman waved her hand dismissively. I did not come to chastise you. I came because I will not allow that foolish girl to destroy what I have worked decades to build. She gestured to Jai-hai's motionless form. The Yoon family has been a thorn in our side for 3 generations. Tonight, that ends. Is she dead? No. Unfortunately. Grandmother Kang's expression was one of mild annoyance. I am old, and my aim is not what it once was. I was aiming for her heart. I hit her lung. She will live, though she will wish she hadn't. The warehouse doors exploded open. Do-han burst through, followed by a small army of armed men. His eyes scanned the space wildly until they found Petra. The relief on his face was devastating. Petra. He was across the space in seconds, pulling her into his arms with enough force to steal her breath. You idiotic, brave, beautiful woman. What the hell were you thinking? I was thinking I love you, she said into his chest. And I couldn't let them hurt Hyun. So you offered yourself instead. His voice broke. Do you have any idea what it did to me when I found out you were gone? When I realized you'd walked into a trap. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. No. He pulled back, framing her face with his hands. Blood from his shoulder wound had soaked through the makeshift bandage, but he didn't seem to notice. No apologies. You saved my brother. You were willing to die for our family. That's... He stopped, overcome. Foolish, Grandmother Kong supplied from behind them. But also admirably loyal. I begin to see why you chose her, Do-han. Do-han's eyes widened. Grandmother. I didn't know you were in the country. Clearly. Or you would have informed me that you'd married a black woman and started a war with the Covenant. She moved closer, eyeing Petra with undisguised interest. She is pretty. And pregnant, if I'm not mistaken. Petra gasped. How did you? I have 12 children and 43 grandchildren. I know the look. The old woman's stern expression softened slightly. So, you are giving me a great-grandchild. That earns you some favor. Grandmother, Do-han said carefully, why are you here? And how did you know? I am old, not dead. I still have eyes and ears everywhere. She gestured to her security team, who were efficiently securing Jai-hai and her unconscious guards. When I learned that the Yoon family was planning to murder your wife and steal your brother, I decided it was time to intervene. The Covenant may have sanctioned this farce, but they forgot one crucial detail. What's that? Grandmother Kang's smile was sharp enough to cut. I founded the Covenant. And what I create, I can destroy. It's time for the old families to learn that the Kang family does not bow to anyone's will but our own. The aftermath of that night rippled through the underground network like an earthquake. Grandmother Kong called an emergency meeting of the Covenant's ruling families. What happened in that meeting, Petra never learned. Do-han said it was better she didn't know. But the results were undeniable. Yoon Jai-hai survived her gunshot wound, only to be tried by the Covenant for acting without proper authorization. Her family's influence was stripped, their assets seized, and Jai-hai herself was exiled to a remote monastery in the mountains of South Korea, where she would spend the rest of her life in isolated penance. The families who had supported the plot against Petra issued formal apologies and offered substantial gifts to the Kang family as restitution. And Grandmother Kong, with the full authority of her position as Covenant founder, issued a decree. Petra Kong was under the Covenant's protection. Any threat to her or her children would be considered a threat to the entire network and would be met with the full force of every family's combined power. Overnight, Petra went from being Do-han's weakness to being one of the most protected women in the world. "I don't understand," she said to Do-han one evening as they sat in the rebuilt study. The estate renovations had taken 3 months. "Why would your grandmother do that? She doesn't even know me. She knows you saved my life. Twice, if we're counting." Do-han's hand rested on the swell of her belly. She was 6 months along now, her pregnancy undeniable. "And she knows that you're carrying the next generation of the Kang family. That's sacred to her. But I'm not Korean. I'm not part of your world. You are now." He leaned over and kissed her gently. "For better or worse, you're stuck with us. All of us. Including my terrifying grandmother." As if summoned, there was a knock at the study door. "Enter," Do-han called. Grandmother Kang swept in, followed by Mrs. Cho carrying a large wooden box. Despite her age, the old woman moved with regal grace, her traditional hanbok rustling softly. "Good. You are both here." She gestured for Mrs. Cho to place the box on the desk. "I have brought you a gift." "Grandmother, you didn't need to." "Hush, boy. This is not for you. It is for your wife and your child." Petra moved forward as the old woman opened the box. Inside, nestled in silk, was the most exquisite jade necklace she had ever seen, a delicate chain supporting a pendant carved in the shape of a phoenix. "This has been in our family for 14 generations, Grandmother Kang said softly. "It is given to the woman who proves herself worthy of leading the family into the next era. Your mother wore it. And now you will wear it." Tears pricked Petra's eyes. I can't accept this. It's too much." "You can and you will." The old woman's tone brooked no argument. She lifted the necklace and fastened it around Petra's neck with surprisingly gentle hands. "You saved my grandson's life. You brought honor to our family through your courage and loyalty. And you are giving us a new beginning, a bridge between worlds, between old ways and new." "I'm just trying to survive," Petra whispered. "Child, we are all just trying to survive. But you do it with grace, with strength, and with love. That makes you extraordinary." Grandmother Kang stepped back, studying Petra with those sharp eyes. "My grandson chose well. I was skeptical at first, I admit this freely. But I see now that you're exactly what this family needs." Do-han's arm wrapped around Petra's shoulders, pulling her close. "I told you she'd love you eventually." Eventually, the old woman sniffed. "Don't push your luck, boy." But she was smiling. 3 months later, Petra went into labor during a thunderstorm. It was poetic, in a way. Her entire relationship with Do-han had been punctuated by storms. The night she'd saved his life. Their first kiss. And now the arrival of their daughter. The labor was long and difficult. Petra had never experienced pain like this, never felt so utterly out of control of her own body. But through it all, Do-han was there, holding her hand, breathing with her, whispering encouragement and love in both English and Korean. "You can do this," he said during a particularly brutal contraction. "You're the strongest person I know. Our daughter is lucky to have you as her mother." "Our daughter is going to owe me for the rest of her life," Petra gasped. "She'll have to get in line. I've owed you for almost 9 years." Despite the pain, Petra laughed. 22 hours after her labor began, Grace Min-hee Kong entered the world. She was perfect. Tiny, with a shock of black hair and skin the color of honey, a beautiful blend of both her parents. Her eyes, when she opened them, were dark and searching, already seeming to take in everything around her. Do-han held his daughter with shaking hands, tears streaming down his face. Petra, she's perfect." "She is," Petra agreed, exhausted but elated. "She really is." The door to the hospital room opened, and Hyun poked his head in. "Can we come in? We've been waiting for hours." Do-han asked. The room filled with people: Hyun, Mrs. Cho, several members of the security team who'd been with them from the beginning, and finally, Grandmother Kang. The old woman approached the bed slowly, her eyes fixed on the baby in Do-han's arms. "May I?" she asked softly. Do-han carefully transferred his daughter to his grandmother's experienced hands. The old woman looked down at the baby, and her stern expression melted into something Petra had never seen before: pure, uncomplicated joy. "Hello, little one," she whispered in Korean. Welcome to the family. You are going to change everything. Grace yawned, completely unimpressed by her great-grandmother's proclamation. Everyone laughed. She has your stubbornness, Petra, Hyun observed, peering over Grandmother Kang's shoulder. Poor Do-han doesn't stand a chance. I never stood a chance, Do-han said, moving to sit on the edge of Petra's hospital bed. He took her hand, lacing their fingers together. From the moment I woke up in that cemetery and saw an angel tending to my wounds, I was lost. I'm not an angel, Petra protested. You are to me. As Petra watched her family gather around her daughter, this impossible family that she'd stumbled into through a combination of fate and a car accident, she felt a profound sense of peace. Her life hadn't turned out anything like she'd planned. She'd gone from being a struggling waitress to the wife of a former crime lord, from grieving and alone to surrounded by more love than she'd ever dreamed possible. What are you thinking? Do-han asked softly. That I'm glad I crashed into your car. He laughed, the sound rich and warm. Best $9 million I never actually made you pay back. About that. Petra, my love, you've given me everything. You saved my life, gave me a reason to become a better man, brought our family together, and now you've blessed me with a daughter. The debt is mine. It will always be mine. Then I guess you'll be spending the rest of your life paying it back. I can't think of anything I'd rather do. He leaned in and kissed her, soft and sweet and full of promise. Grace made a small sound of protest, as if to say she was far more interesting than her parents kissing. She's right, Grandmother Kong announced. Enough romance. I want to hold my great-granddaughter. You are holding her, Grandmother, Hyun pointed out. I meant for longer. Everyone out. Except Petra. Mothers need rest, not a parade of visitors. The room cleared with surprising speed. Nobody argued with Grandmother Kang when she used that tone. Even Do-han retreated after kissing both his wife and daughter. But the old woman didn't leave. She settled into the chair beside Petra's bed, cradling Grace with the ease of long practice. Thank you, Petra said quietly. For everything you've done for us. I did what needed to be done. What was right? Grandmother Kang's eyes met hers. You know, when I was a young woman, I fell in love with a man from outside our world. A Chinese artist with no family connections, no political value. My parents forbade the match. What did you do? I married him anyway. Caused a scandal that lasted for years. But he was a good man, and he gave me 12 beautiful children before he died. The old woman's expression grew distant. The covenant was born from that scandal, actually. I realized that if families kept warring over marriages and alliances, we would destroy ourselves. So I brought them together, created rules, built a structure that would last. But the rules you created almost got me killed. Yes. Grandmother Kang's voice was heavy with regret. I built something to protect love, and it became a cage instead. That's why I intervened. That's why I'm changing things. The covenant will evolve, or it will die. And I choose evolution. Grace yawned again, her tiny hand wrapping around her great-grandmother's finger. She will be something special, this one, the old woman predicted. Born of two worlds, belonging fully to both and neither. She will build bridges we cannot even imagine. Or she'll just be a regular kid who complains about her homework and fights with her siblings, Petra said with a smile. Perhaps. But even that would be extraordinary. Grandmother Kong carefully transferred Grace back to Petra's arms. Raise her well. Teach her strength and compassion, courage and wisdom. The world she will inherit is changing rapidly, and she will need all of those things. I will. We will. The old woman stood, smoothing her hanbok. I must go. I have a covenant meeting to prepare for. There are several families that need to be reminded of the new order. She paused at the door. Petra. Yes. Thank you. For giving my grandson a reason to step into the light. For giving our family a future worth fighting for. Then she was gone, leaving Petra alone with her daughter. Petra looked down at Grace's perfect face, at the tiny person who represented so much hope and possibility. Your life is going to be complicated, little one, she whispered. You've got Korean blood and Nigerian blood, a family tree that includes crime lords and artists, and a great-grandmother who terrifies heads of state. But you're also going to be so loved. And that's what matters. Grace made a small, content sound, as if in agreement. The door opened quietly, and Do-han slipped back in. Sorry. I couldn't stay away. I don't want you to. Petra shifted, making room for him on the bed. He climbed in carefully, wrapping his arms around both his wife and daughter. How are you feeling? Exhausted. Sore. Deliriously happy. Good. That's good. He pressed a kiss to her temple. I love you, Petra. More than I thought possible to love anyone. I love you too. Even if you did ruin my Honda Civic. Best car accident in the history of car accidents. They sat in comfortable silence, watching their daughter sleep, both of them marveling at the improbable series of events that had brought them to this moment. A cemetery. A car crash. A debt that became a destiny. And a love that had survived everything the world could throw at it. 5 years later, Grace Kong stood at the edge of Oakland Cemetery, holding her father's hand. This is where you met Mommy? She asked, staring at the old gates. Not exactly, Do-han said, crouching down to her level. This is where Mommy saved my life. We didn't really meet until much later. And then she crashed into your car. Yes, she's always made quite an entrance. Is that why you married her? Do-han laughed. I married her because she's brave and kind, and she made me want to be a better person. Also, she makes the best jollof rice I've ever tasted. Better than Mrs. Cho's? Don't tell Mrs. Cho I said that. Grace giggled, then grew serious. Daddy, why are we here? Because today is the anniversary of the day your mother saved my life. And every year, we come here to remember that sometimes the smallest acts of kindness can change everything. They walked deeper into the cemetery until they found the grave that had started it all, Grace's great-grandmother on Petra's side. A single white rose already lay on the headstone. Petra stepped out from behind a nearby oak tree, her smile radiant. She'd been coming here for an hour every month since she was 17, and even now, after everything that had changed, she maintained the tradition. Mommy! Grace ran to her and Petra scooped her up effortlessly. Hello, my love. Did Daddy tell you the story? About how you're a superhero who saves people? Yes, Petra laughed, looking over their daughter's head to meet Do-han's eyes. I'm not a superhero, baby. I'm just someone who did what felt right. That's what superheroes do, Grace insisted. She has a point, Do-han said, joining them. He wrapped his arms around both of his girls. You did save the world. My world, anyway. You're both ridiculous, Petra said, but she was smiling. They stood together in the peaceful cemetery, a family built from impossible circumstances and sustained by stubborn, fierce love. A Korean crime lord who became a legitimate businessman. A struggling American woman who became a force to be reckoned with. And a little girl who would grow up to bridge worlds her parents could barely imagine. Come on, Petra said eventually. Mrs. Cho is making dinner and your grandmother is flying in tonight. We should get home. Is Auntie bringing the twins? Grace asked excitedly. You mean your Uncle Hyun's wife? Yes, she's bringing your cousins. As they walked back toward their car, a sensible SUV, no more Bugattis for daily use, Grace skipped ahead, chattering about her cousins and what games they'd play. Do-han took Petra's hand, lacing their fingers together. Any regrets? He asked softly. Petra thought about it, about the hard times and the scary moments, about the threats they'd faced and the battles they'd fought. About the life she'd left behind and the one she'd built in its place. Not a single one, she said. Good. Neither do I. They drove back toward the estate, toward home, toward the life they'd built together against all odds. And somewhere in the Atlanta sky, the sun was setting in brilliant shades of gold and crimson, the colors of transformation, of endings that became beginnings, of deaths that became destinies. The end. And that is how Petra and Do-han's story truly ends, with love, family, and a future full of hope. Did this part 2 deliver everything you wanted? Were you on the edge of your seat during Jae-hye's confrontation? And what did you think about Grandmother Kang's intervention? If you loved this conclusion, smash that like button and leave a comment telling me your favorite moment. Should I do a spin-off story about Grace when she grows up? Or maybe Uncle Hyun's love story? Let me know what you want to see next. Subscribe to the channel for more amazing stories, and remember, sometimes the worst day of your life is actually the beginning of the best chapter. Until next time, loves.